Welcome to Inside the 12. I'm Pete Souza, alongside the Big 12 great, Baylor's own King McClure, the Hooper himself. King, you ready to dive into all things Big 12 basketball?
You know I've been ready, Pete. Let's make it happen.
We are making it happen less than 2 weeks away from the start of the men's conference schedule. A perfect time to play a little catch-up and get fans caught up on all the Big 12 action that has happened. And over the next two shows specifically, we are going to bring you a conference preview. We're going to take a look at where teams are at this point, and King's also going to tell us what he has liked so far. Also, what he hasn't liked. We call that improvement around here.
Improvement. You got to get better day by day, slowly but surely. You got to get better.
Yeah, we're also going to have a great chat with former Iowa State great and All-American, Big 12 Hoops analyst Ann O'Neill. We're going to talk about the women's game. So we will literally cover it all today, but we're going to start with three teams that we feel are at the top of our list. King, I know you like these teams. Iowa State, Kansas, and the Houston Cougars. These are all teams. The end goal is to be celebrating when the confetti comes down at the Alamo Dome. All right, first up in this list of three teams, one that I know that King likes a lot. The number 3 ranked Iowa State Cyclones went 9-1 to start the season. They bring back 4 of their top scorers from last year, including senior guard Keshawn Gilbert. King, I know you gotta love Tamin Lipsey, you gotta love Gilbert, but their front court scoring is something that's appealed to you too already.
Yeah, but what I love the most about this Iowa State team is that they have a toughness about them. They have a culture that has already been built in, right? When you replace Rob Jones, you replace Trey King in the front court with guys like Joshua Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson. Those two guys in Jefferson and Jackson take so much pressure away from their backcourt because they can score the basketball. Last year, they weren't winning games unless all of their guards were on. This year, they have options, and I think that's what makes this team dangerous. And when you look at what they have done up to this point, Tamin Lipsey, All-American point guard, has not been that level of player. He has not been the Tamin Lipsey in which we all know and love, right? He's defensively, he's been special. We saw that in the game against Marquette when he was locking up Cam Jones. But offensively, he hasn't provided anything. But why are they still able to win games? Why are they still the number 3 team in the country? Because of their front court. Their front court production takes so much pressure off of their backcourt. That is why I think this Iowa State team has a legitimate chance not only to win a Big 12 championship, but a national championship.
Well, looking ahead, they're going to take on Baylor. That'll be on January 4th, 2 p.m. Eastern time on CBS. Obviously, a huge game from then. And then Kansas, number 10 in the country. That game will be on Wednesday, January 15th, 7 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN2. Now, speaking of Kansas, we have to talk about the Jayhawks. Ranked 8th in the country, 2 losses already. They've started the season 8-2. King, Bill Self, though, has to be happy about the experience he's received from players like Hunter Dickinson, from players like DeJuan Harris, also the incoming transfers.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? We talk about establishing identity and establishing a culture. I don't think Kansas has that yet. Kansas is still trying to figure out who they are. They're trying to figure out their rotations. Bill Self said last year in the press conference, we don't have enough dudes. We are not ready. This will never happen again. Well, guess what? He went out and got some dudes, Pete. And you know what? I would never say they have too many dudes, right? But there's only one basketball, and he's still trying to figure out minutes. You have guys like A.J. Storr, Zeke Mayo, Rylan Griffin, Coit. I mean, all of these guys are double-digit scorers at their previous school. They could have gone anywhere in the country and been that guy for that program. These are high-level guards, but you gotta find a way to get these guys acclimated into the Kansas system. And once they figure that out, I think that's when Kansas will go to the next level. Right now, they're playing through Hunter Dickinson, right? You have an elite veteran point guard, one of the most veteran point guards we've seen in a long time, DeJuan Harris. But once they get the other supporting cast, they get these high-level guards to all buy in, to all gel together and mesh and figure out ways to get them into the rotation, this Kansas team is going to be elite and dangerous.
Yeah, and you and I are lucky enough to be able to go around and call some of these Big 12 games and talk to some of these coaches. They all have talked so far this year about the depth of this Kansas team, how it's scary. That's what you like. Where do you find them to be somewhat vulnerable?
Well, I think right now they got to find a way, like I just said, they got to find a way to get the guards involved. Because I think that when you play through Hunter Dickinson, I think that in today's day and age, in today's landscape of college basketball, you can't win playing through your big. You cannot look to post up and expect a big man to win you games. Good guards, everybody knows, good guards brings you wins in March, and they have a lot of them. So right now, where I think they're most vulnerable is because they're playing through their big. They're playing through Hunter Dickinson. If Hunter Dickinson is your second, third option, now your team is dangerous. Because if you can't get a bucket with your guards, you can throw it down low, and you know he's getting one. But I think that's where they're most vulnerable right now.
All right, they start off their schedule December 31st versus West Virginia, and then back-to-back road games. January 11th, they're at Cincinnati, and then January 3rd at Iowa State. That one's 7 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN2. All right, the third team in our list of title contenders. I love this squad. They've struggled a little bit early. They made it to the Sweet 16 last year. Of course, we're talking about Kelvin Sampson's Houston Cougars. They're the 15th ranked team in the top 25 right now. 4 big-time returning players, led by L.J. Cryer. Also, they get Los Uzan coming over from Oklahoma. He's been brought in to replace Jamal Shead. That is a difficult hill to climb. How have you liked Houston so far this year without a player like Jamal Shead?
Yeah, I like them, Pete, but I don't love them. And the reason why is because I think that Jamal Shead is such, he played such a pivotal role for this team. And that is hard to fill his shoes. And I think the key to this team is Milos Uzan. His ability to be able to defend on the defensive side, to pressure the ball like Jamal Shead did, and he has to fill his shoes when it comes to playmaking, getting his teammates involved, getting Cryer and Sharp those shots, because they're not great one-on-one isolation playmakers and when it comes to creating their own offense. So Milos Uzan, the key is in his hands. How good this team will be determined on how good Milos Uzan will be.
Well, what do you make of they had a tough start to the season.
Yeah.
A couple of uncharacteristic losses for the Cougs this early on.
But I'm not too concerned about it. We saw the same thing with Kansas. I think early losses teach you things about your team to where you can improve. I think that when you win a lot early on in the season, when I was at Baylor, we went 17-0 to start the season, #1 team in the country, right? It hurt us in the long run because we were tested, but we weren't really tested. We didn't understand how it felt to lose to where we got complacent. So I think that Kelvin Sampson is one of those guys in which those losses mean something. You're going to learn from him. He's one of the best coaches in the country, and he's going to get his team ready and prepared for when conference play comes.
Yeah, well, they kick off their conference play on December 30th. They travel to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State. All right, plenty more to come on Inside the 12, including a look at a group of teams who have the talent to find themselves holding down spots in the AP poll throughout the season. Our conference play preview continues when we come back. Welcome back to Inside the 12. Our Big 12 Conference basketball preview rolls on. Pete Souza, of course, with King McClure. These teams are all getting ready to start play on December 30th. Our conference preview continues right now. We got a group of teams that we're putting in the top 25, and we also want to keep an eye on them. We're starting with Cincinnati, right?
I love what Cincinnati brings to the table. They're currently sitting at number 19 in the AP poll. Baylor was preseason number 8 before some extremely tough losses. And Texas Tech got up to number 26. So not quite there yet, but the way that they played against Oral Roberts the other day, I like their odds.
Oh, they look really good, especially losing JT Toppin. We'll get into all this now. We want to start things off with a team that you know very well, King. Baylor sitting at 7-3 on the season. A lot of new faces, including transfers. Jeremy Roach, who is unbelievable, as is Norchad Omier.
Well, I love the veteran leadership on this team. You talk about Norchad Omier, a guy who has led a team to the Final Four in Miami. Jeremy Roach, a guy who has led a team to the Elite Eight in Duke. Well, my only question, my only concern about this Baylor team is how does their half-court offense look? VJ Edgecombe, we know he's dynamic in the open floor. His athleticism is better than 98% of humans that play basketball. But what does their half-court offense look like? Rob Wright has looked phenomenal. He is mature. He is playing above his years. But when they slow the game down, the game against Tennessee, perfect example. When the teams slow the game against them, they get physical. They're not allowing you to get to your spots. And now it's just one-on-one. You have to go create. You have to go make a play for others, right? Can VJ Edgecombe do that?
Well, you played a lot.
Can Jeremy Roach do that?
Well, you played a lot and you learned a lot from Scott Drew. What do you think his answer is to that? How can they do well in half court?
That's something I think he's still trying to figure out, because the game against Tennessee was a huge learning lesson. We talked about learning lessons early on when you take bad losses. I think that was one for him, and I think that they're still trying to figure that out.
All right, well, we talk about what's your beef. This is presented by Old Trafford Beef Jerky. We're going to be talking about this all season long. My beef right now, some tough non-conference losses for Baylor. We're talking about UConn, Gonzaga. You mentioned Tennessee. everybody can pump the brakes on the panic button right now.
For sure.
This
Pump
is
the
a
brakes.
good team right now, and I'm not saying that you are having a problem with this,
Yeah.
but I think people look at their record right now and they say, man, 7-3, they should be better than that. The 3 losses are to absolute powerhouses.
I mean, Tennessee's the #1 team in the country. You go to Gonzaga. You don't play Gonzaga at the Kennel. You go play them in an arena that holds 6,000 more people. And you know, based off what Baylor did to them in the championship, those 16,000 fans absolutely hate Baylor's guts. And it's the first game of the season. You're going on the road, basically on the road. They call it a neutral site, but it wasn't neutral site, right? You're going on the road playing against arguably one of the best teams in the country. You know going in there, we're odds not in our favor, right? And then you lose to UConn at UConn.
Yeah.
Right? One of the teams who they struggled early, but now they're starting to figure out because they have one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in college basketball. Baylor's losses were not bad losses. Pump the brakes.
Pump the brakes. All right, we're actually going to tap the gas now as we're going to head on over to Cincinnati. 19th ranked right now. Wes Miller's team 8-1 to start the season. First thing that jumps out to me is their size. What do you think about this team? They're really long, King.
I love what Wes Miller did this year, and the biggest thing that I'm most impressed with is that he kept his team together. He kept his core together, and when we talk about people, coaches, having to establish cultures, establish an identity early on in the season, I think the teams who gel the quickest, who mesh the fastest, will be those teams that we see have early success. And this is what this team is doing. This is why they're having success. Getting Dylan Mitchell, allowing Dylan Mitchell to finally be free. I think he's playing the best basketball of his career. He was great at Texas. He was a great athlete. They had him on the draft boards. But he almost didn't reach the level in which I think that he was capable of reaching. But now at Cincinnati, it looks like Wes Miller is giving him the keys. And one thing when I talked to Wes Miller, one thing that he continuously raved about when it comes to Dylan Mitchell is his passing. We know he's an elite rebounder, an elite athlete, but his passing is something that's very undervalued. And Wes Miller is going to let him be free and let him just rock, right? But also Luke Kocic. Luke Kocic has been impressive. He's taken his game to the next level, him and Jizzle James. Cincinnati is a team to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, you mentioned the keys. We just got, nowadays we just leave the keys in the car, push to start. Cincinnati will be starting up conference play on December 30th with a trip to Kansas State. That game is set for 7 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. All right, you and I were both at Texas Tech on Monday night for that victory they had against Oral Roberts. They are certainly a team that is looking beyond making it into the top 25, but you can expect them to be in the top 25 soon. Looking at their roster, what do you like?
Well, I love what Grant McCassin did by going to get a guy like JT Toppin. He has been arguably the most impressive player in all of the Big 12. A double-double machine, absolute dog down low, hasn't played in the last 3 or 4 games, battling an injury, but when they get him back, which they will probably get him back in the next, 2 weeks, he is going to have this Texas Tech team rolling, right? They lose to A&M in a game by 5, in which if they would have had Toppin, they win that game. And A&M is as hot as any team in the country. Chance McMillan is taking it to the next level. The way that he's shooting the ball from deep, over 50% from the field. Yeah, 53 from the 3, over 50 from the field, 95% from the free throw line. He's taking it to the next level. Darion Williams is a guy who is an all Big 12 caliber player who is also taking it to the next level. Would love to see him get a little bit more aggressive offensively because there's moments where he needs to take over, like in the game against A&M, which he didn't. But once he can figure it out, how to be that lead guy, Texas Tech is another team that can slide into that #1 spot.
I mean, he's a great kid. He came up and said what's up to us before the game. Why didn't you tell him
He was
that?
real nice. He was real, look, that's not my job. I don't get paid enough to do that, Pete.
By the way, I got one name I want you to keep an eye on. Federico for Texas Tech.
Yes, phenomenal.
He's a big guy. He's been able to step in with the loss of Devin Cambridge. And also you mentioned JT Toppin being down. Boy, that guy has great court awareness on the block. He just knows the game, and he's extremely talented. I think he could be a huge addition for them in their front court. When we come back, it is time to talk women's hoops. Former Iowa State standout and current Big 12 basketball TV analyst Ann O'Neill. She joins the party to give us her top teams heading into conference play. Also, some of the top matchups early on. All that and more when Inside the 12 returns. We are back and better than ever here on Inside the 12. Pete Souza alongside King McClure. Right now it's time to talk a little Big 12 women's basketball. Conference play begins on Saturday. Joining us now, To give an intro to this big-time entree, this conference slate we have, is Big 12 insider Ann O'Neill. Ann, of course, you're an All-American at Iowa State, drafted into the WNBA, and now you're coaching, or you were coaching, now you're calling games, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. What's better than Big 12 hoops? Let's get it going.
Let's get it going.
Let's do it. And well, the Big 12 has 3 women's teams in the top 15 of the latest AP poll: TCU, Kansas State, and West Virginia. Who is your top women's team heading into conference play this weekend?
Oh, you're going to cook me on the very first question. Oh, man. But I'm going to start off with TCU. They have had an incredible start to the season. Right now, they're 12th. But I got to tell you, in their program, it's the first time ever in TCU history that they've cracked the top 10 in the AP poll. And they're led behind the big 3, which is Sedona Prince, Haley Van Lith, and a sniper in Madison Connor. Together, they average over 53 points and 63% of the offense. They're rebounding, they're assisting. They just really have it going on playing positionless basketball from Coach Mark Campbell. He wants to run it like a WNBA, and that's why they have so many transfers in that want to win together and get that experience. So I'm going to start off with TCU. They've upset NC State, which was a top-ranked team, and number 3, Notre Dame. That's how they kept moving forward in the AP poll.
You know, one team I cannot take my eyes off of right now, the Kansas State Wildcats. Heading into conference play, what are the vibes you're getting about this team?
The vibes are really good because they are extremely deep. So much so that the Wildcats have 6 players averaging double figures. And they're led by 6'7" preseason player of the year, Ayoka Lee. She just broke Kansas State's all-time scoring record, but she also has the all-time record for rebounds and blocked shots. But she's got a core around her that is incredible. We've got to mention Serena Sundell. She has one of the only triple doubles in Big 12 already in non-conference play. They also are second in the nation for assists per game at 23 assists. So they're sharing the ball, they're moving the ball, and they can go deep into the bench. This is one of Coach Mitty's best teams for the Wildcats.
And let's take it over to Morgantown, because I've been so impressed with the West Virginia defense. And you can't talk defense without talking Coach Kellogg's team, right? They're giving up under 50 points per game, tops in the Big 12. How impressed are you by the feisty West Virginia squad?
Oh, I love this team so much so, you guys, I called them Stress Virginia instead of like the men's team where they called them Press Virginia, because if you're trying to run your offense against the Mountaineers, you're going to be stressed out. They're top 10 in the nation for turnovers force, for steals. Again, like you mentioned, holding opponents under 48 points per game. But what they did in the offseason is they focused on that offense, and now they're averaging over 85 points a game. So they really have it going on both ends of the court, and they've got a guard duo in J.J. Quinterly and Jordan Harrison, over 33 points a game and 5 steals. Man, I can't wait to watch them. They also have a very deep bench for Coach Kellogg.
Hold on, I'm writing that down. Stress Virginia.
Stress Virginia.
I'm using that this season. All right, you mentioned some players there in Morgantown, but looking outside of those top teams, who are some of the other individuals that have been putting on a show this season and have caught your attention?
Well, we got to talk about Audie Crooks, one of the best post players in the entire nation for Iowa State. Just a couple of games ago, she had back-to-back 30 points. She's on everyone's radar across the nation. And if I had a couple other players, I mean, how much time do we have? We have like 40 players we need to highlight here. But I'll go to Dariana Littlepage-Buggs from Baylor. She had a 2020 game and is leading them in double figures. And when we talk about double figures, we got to bring up Jillian Hayes from Cincinnati, also averaging a double-double. And I know y'all like shooting. We're going to go to Staley Hurd at Oklahoma State. She had 2 games, guys, where she was 15 for 18 from behind the three-point line. That's 83%. That's better than layups for most people. So just some really baller games already in the Big 12, and I know they're only going to grow and expand, and wish we had more time to highlight more players.
Yeah, we are short on time. We got about 30 seconds before we let you go. Which 2 games are you most excited for when conference play tips off for the women's side this weekend?
So this coming Saturday, we have Iowa State at Oklahoma State. Again, two teams who love to shoot the long ball. I'm looking forward to that one. And Kansas versus Baylor, two teams that are playing really well and tops in the conference. So I've got those circled on my calendar for Saturday.
All right, Ann, thank you so much for your time. We're looking forward to welcoming you throughout the season as well. Thank you so much today, and of course, happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you guys too. Thanks so much.
All right, we got to take a timeout, but when we come back, we'll return. We've got 5 names you need to know on the men's side as we head into conference play there. Stick around. We are back on Inside the 12. He is King McClure. I'm Pete Souza. We talked a lot about the top teams in the conference earlier. We want to talk about some of the top players in the conference right now. King, why don't you get us started up? I know that you like Javon Small.
An absolute bucket getter. Oklahoma State transferred 20 points per game, 24th in the NCAA, 40% from three-point range, led his team to a big win against Gonzaga.
All right, I got another guy for you. Gabe Madsen at Utah, averaging almost 20 points a game, one of the top scorers in all of the NCAA. The dude is a modern-day hippie. He's got the long hair. He's like Bill Walton in a guard form, right? He goes out before the game. He doesn't even wear shoes. He's got bare feet on. He calls that grounding, getting centered. He's got his twin brother playing with him for the first time since high school this year. Look for him. He's a fun guy to watch.
I got one for you, Pete. Jason Sanan, Arizona State freshman. This young man is absolutely phenomenal. When we talk about a group of freshmen, when you mention Cooper Flagg, you mentioned Ace Bailey, and all these other great freshmen we've seen this year, don't forget to mention Jason Sanan's name. The way that he is shooting the ball, 52 from 3, the leading scorer at Arizona State, he can be a guy that's all Big 12.
All right, give me something on Igor Denman.
Oh, for sure. An absolute problem at 6'9", 6'10". The way that he can facilitate, the way that he can pass the ball in a pick and roll and also score. And mind you, Pete, he's a 6'10" point guard. This is easily one of those freshmen that will go under the radar and be a top 10 pick in next year's draft. Kevin Young has him a good one.
Hey, King is not only our source here on Inside the 12, he's my source too. I was doing a Baylor game earlier this year. I said, yo, what makes Norshad Omier so good? You said you can't guard him one-on-one.
Yeah.
You can't leave him alone. And the guy is a walking double-double, one of the best additions to the conference.
A man amongst boys has a knack for getting the ball, knowing where the ball is going to come off the rim. He can score down low. He can step out and shoot the three a little bit. Sometimes not great, but he can do it pretty good, right? He's the ultimate leader. He's a winner. He's one of the top, I want to say, leading rebounders in America when it comes to overall rebounds, like in 4 or 5 year span. This young man is an absolute dog. I can't even call him a young man because he's a grown man, Pete.
He is a grown man. One of the many reasons to continue to watch the Big 12 this season. That is our show for this week. Make sure you tune in next Thursday as we continue to get you ready for the Big 12 Conference. King, before we go, give people something to watch this weekend. One game.
Tomorrow night, there we go. Tomorrow night, number 19 Cincinnati takes on number 22 Dayton, one of the hottest teams in the country. 8:30 Eastern on ESPNU. I'll be watching, and so should you at home.
All right, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays from all of us. Not Happy New Year quite yet. We will see you before the New Year next week. But until then, enjoy yourself. Have a happy holiday.